Cell communication, probably some of your most exciting things. Think about that cell phone and how much we communicate. So, why do we think it's absolutely essential for multicellular organisms to survive and function properly using communications? They have to be able to communicate. And that is accomplished between cells mainly by chemical means. So, one of the types of signaling, remember we talked about when we looked at the cell membrane and we said that those peripheral proteins were used, one of the jobs was used for signaling. Direct contact is one way that communication can occur. So there's actual physical contact, and you can see the physical contact here between cells or organisms. Another one is local and long distance communication. Local, it they're growth factors that are released into some sort of localized area. This is usually when we need normal growth or repair. You cut your hand and there's a signal, your body signals to start making cells. So there's some kind of just local right here in the area. Another example of local signaling is through synaptic signaling. And so the synapse of these neurons, the firing of these neurons. Now, so you have a nerve cell, and the signal is transmitted from the source to where the effector cell is. And so you have these, and it's not considered direct contact because you have this synapse right here. You have this this area, this break area. So they're not directly in contact with one another, but the signal then transfers right here. A good example of this one would be a teacher speaking to a class of students. There's not direct contact. I'm not, directly speaking into your ear, but you are receiving the message that I give. And then we have this long distance type of communication. Hormones are one of them. And so the hormones are released in one part of the body and they travel to a whole different other part of the body. They travel through the bloodstream. You can see here they're released. They travel through the bloodstream and they end up in whatever target cell, and that cell is going to affect whatever needs to take place. Another long distance type of communication is pheromones. Pheromones are used for multiple things. You can see here the dog is marking its presence, so it looks like it's just peeing on this fire hydrant, but there's more to it, because when other dogs come by and sniff, they're like, oh, Fred was here, so oh my goodness, get out of Dodge. They're also used, pheromones are used for attracting mates, so they'll release that chemical in the environment. The rest of the animals around it can detect that, and they know that there's someone in the area. Like when a dog's in heat, boy, dogs can know for miles that there's a dog in heat. So pheromones are released. Pheromones are also laid down to signal, like ants. How do you always know how an ant can follow along on a trail to food? How do they know how to do that? Well, they know it because they're laying down a chemical signal. They're laying down pheromones so that the other ants can follow it. Another type of cell communication is called signal transduction pathway. This just sounds fabulous, doesn't it? You should say that at the breakfast table because your parents will be very happy. Oh, we just studied a little signal transduction pathway. This is analogous to talking on the phone, so this is a very similar way. This Earl Sutherland, as you can see this picture right here, won the Nobel Prize in 1971 for his work with this, for this discovery, and he worked at Vanderbilt University. And what he found is there's three main parts to the pathway. The reception is the first one, and this is where, now remember we said that there were embedded within the cell membrane. So here's the inside cytoplasm and the extracellular fluid on the outside of this cell membrane. So this is in the cell membrane, and we have these proteins that are embedded in there, and we said that they were used for signal. So in the reception portion, you have some chemical that comes in and binds to this membrane receptor protein. And if we want to look at this again with our phone call method or analogy, It's like the phone is ringing. So you don't know anything about the actual call. You only know the phone is ringing. And that ringing is going to need to be changed into something else that's understandable. But it's not right now. Right now, the phone is ringing. All right, now we have transduction, the second part to this pathway, the signal transduction pathway. And the transduction means to to change or carry through. So this is like answering the telephone. There's a whole series of steps. You can see this transformation going on. You have this series of steps in this changing of the signal to something the cell can understand. And that's going to be at the nucleus or somewhere in the cytoplasm. So in the phone answering example, it would be this series of steps. Pick up the phone, move the phone to your mouth, say hello, wait for the conversation to begin. Now that conversation's occurring, you can understand what the message is that was initiated by the ringing of the phone. But nothing's happened yet. Now we have the response, the third part. So we have reception, transduction, and then response. So the response involves making something or turning something on or off. It's some sort of enzymatic process. Now this usually involves DNA transcription or translation, which we're going to have coming up in the next unit. But well, we'll even talk about it very soon. But transcription and translation or enzymes inside the cell. So there's going to be some kind of reaction that's taking place. And now you know what the phone message was. In our phone analogy, you know what the message was. You're going to hang up the phone and do what's asked, and that's what's your response right here. And when it says activation of cellular responses, we're not talking about your cell phone. We're talking about responses at the cellular level within our cell. So you hang up the phone, you do what was asked of you. Now, this pathway is complete. The action response has occurred. So we had reception in the cell membrane, transduction within the cytoplasm, this series of things that are going on, transduction to change or carry through, and then a response. Now, when we're actually looking at the actual signal molecule, so here's our plasma membrane, our cell membrane, our phospholipid bilayer, and here is our protein that's embedded in here. In this case, we're looking at an integral protein because it goes all the way through the membrane. And so this is the actual signal molecule. So the ligand bends. You can see here if a ligand sits in the binding site, the bottom segment that interacts, which is the bottom segment that interacts with a G protein, drops down. So let's look at that. The ligand actually binds to the receptor protein, and they're like the hands. And so, but that receptor protein that's on the cell membrane or inside the cell that goes all the way through. Think of it kind of like, think of cells like blind, deaf, and mute individuals. They could still effectively communicate, and they can understand their environment by using their hands and to touch and feel. So they can use something else. What happens is this attachment causes this conformational shape change. That means it is, you have this shape change that occurs that so that other things can't bind to it. So once that's bound to it, that message, you have to have that message go all the way through. So it's the receptor protein that sets the in motion that transduction pathway, and it happens at that attachment site with the ligand. Oh gosh, that's all we have for today. I know you're so